Well, good evening, everybody. Yahoo. There it is. YouTube kicked on, and the volume was not turned off. Look at that. So, yeah, I was on earlier with Dago. I'm going to be a little more blunt and to the point with my title. It's a little more refined after we had that nice discussion up there on Dago's channel, with some interruptions with some really loosely assembled brain matter of some of the people that entered his chat room, which made it interesting. Let's see here. So I'll wait for a few people to come in, and I'm going to make the claim that the killings in Idaho, based on stacked series of events, the killings began at 4:17 a.m. So, for those in the chat, help along here. For the longest time since this crime was reported, we've all had a real problem with the state, which they themselves have moved the timeline. The timeline has always started at 4 o'clock, and then ended at 4:20, and then another document it was 4:25, and it's been moved as far as 4 to 4:30 a.m. is the time that they claim the crimes took place. And right from the very start, many people, if not the majority of people, what's up, Thomas? What's up there, Karen Edith? Had issue with that timeline because we were also made aware that the vehicle in question, suspect vehicle 1, went around the building and parked at some time beyond 4:07 a.m., which then limited the time to 4:20 a.m., 13 minutes to commit the 4 murders. And it limited that particular period of time because, according to what was being given to the public, at 4:20 a.m., they claimed that the vehicle involved left the scene at a high rate of speed. And so it's been established in stone by the authorities, the time of 4:07 and something seconds of a car going around the building to park. And then a car, they claim the same vehicle, speeding away at 4:20 a.m., which limits us to less than 13 minutes. Let's say 11 minutes to be fair, of the time it took to exit the vehicle, enter the home, commit the murders, get back to the vehicle, and leave. And this is the timeline that we've all been struggling with, and streamers of all sorts, the ones that are batshit crazy in the head or just want to make up all of these conspiracy theories. Everybody has had an issue with that. So there's claims that the crime took place at 2 a.m. because of what a parent said. And you guys are willing to jump in and throw out some of the times that you have been told it started. People think it started around 3:15 a.m. People are now trying to connect it to the accurate 3:16 TikTok from Zaina's phone. A TikTok that was misrepresented to be 4:12 a.m. For the longest period of time. That's then since subsequently been corrected to be 3:16 a.m., not 4:12. And so we have all of these times of all of these events that were happening according to the police statements or the police inferences, and then the interpretations of the people in the streams, and some reputable people. And for most of the streamers out here, it's more about revenue and accuracy, and honesty is really only as much of a part of their stream as it needs to be, so they can keep getting their clicks. Let's see here. I would say to you that within just a very few short seconds, my little 2,750 stream subscription will exceed the following or the viewership of a partnering stream with 10,000 plus members. And that stream is 12 gauge. Guy's got almost 11,000 viewers, or definitely 10,000 viewers plus. And we now have exceeded at 22 in our very strong opening here. More viewers than his stream had in the first 20 minutes. And I want to point out 12 gauge and his little cadre of empty heads, because they are one of the center points for the trolls. That's where the trolls coalesce. That's where the trolls hang out. And that's where the trolls want to come in and start their disinformation and start battling with facts that are documented not by us, not by me, but by the authorities, both being the prosecuting side, law enforcement side, and the defense side. Information that you rightfully should rely upon. That information has been supported by many, many copies and many documentations, by even questions in court. And that's the kind of information that we like to contain ourselves to, and not wander off into the theories of band fields and grub trucks and sororities and frats and fields and trees and streams and dreams. We meaning me and those that I bring up on the panel, we do our very best to stay within verifiable information that's publicly available through documentation that you can receive from the Idaho website, or statements that were made under oath, which can be seen by watching the arguings for motions of suppression, motions in limine, and motions filing for frank hearings, and the general particular motions for discovery and the process of bringing a criminal case to a trial. And through all of those proceedings, those are where the information my stream focuses on. And how I'm able to look at certain things and come to the conclusions, which may be wrong, but we'll stick with those pertinent facts that people can go reference themselves. I'm not going to create a stream, and I'm not going to do what Lena does. I think Lena does a good job, but I'm not going to sit here and go through every single document that's available to you with your own little effort. I think most people that come in the stream have followed me around as co-host or guests on many streams. And I think we can all safely agree my memory is pretty fucking sharp. And when wrong, I eagerly, willingly, and easily accept the new facts and corrections in detail, and then assess where that puts my view on what I'm looking at. I think we've all witnessed that, and I'm a believer that being wrong is the only place to begin when you want to learn something. So if you want to learn, you generally come from a position of being wrong, or you come from a position of ignorance. Ignorance not being a negative connotation, ignorance and to describe something that you are unaware of or ill-informed about. Ignorance is another place where learning begins, if you so choose to learn. I agree, kindness. There's a lot of information we don't have. They've trickled this information out. I think we might all agree that they've given us this information backwards, in as much as they've been telling us the same story. The media has been supporting this story, and streamers like the Drunk Turkey and other idiots out there have reinforced the arguments of the media and the prosecution in their circumstantial case against Brian Christopher Kohberger, a case that's built upon stories of cars, phones, and video that so far, as of this very moment in time, in no way, shape, or form can be connected to Brian Kohberger, unless, without thinking, you accept their narrative and you have this belief that Brian Kohberger is the occupant and that is his car. If you're able to buy that without any proof other than them telling you that, then that's your first error in trying to understand the situation. Right? So that's why the stream tonight says killings began at 4:17 a.m. And that statement I'm going to stick with, because I don't think in any of the documentation, in any of the proceedings, has anything ever been presented in a cascading effect to which we can point to and say, you know, if the crime started at any time, this time is the best assessment, because 3 or 4 significant events took place all at that time, all at once. And I think that's why I wanted to do the stream. I know we covered this with Dago, and I know I may be beating a dead horse, but I also know that people come in here that aren't normally in Dago's thread because they're working, or they're not available to listen to the stream. They come on at night. And so I'm going to dive into this deeper. I appreciate the viewers that will come in as the night progresses. Let me just get myself over here on X. We do stream to a platform called X, which is the old Twitter. We also stream across a site called Rumble. and of course YouTube, where many of you come from. I don't know. I sent him an invite, and as a matter of fact, let me put the invite in the room. Copy. I think an outside voice, someone that may not be commonly on the show in the on panel. It would be nice to get some of you that aren't frequently or have yet to be on panel up here. Your counter arguments or maybe data that you have may change the view of the host and the listeners, or it may add to the understanding of the host or listeners, or you might just be so fucked up that I got to block you. But somewhere within that menagerie of chaos, you're welcome to come up here. Kindness cake. Interesting to know what Zana ordered to eat and if she indeed did eat the food. I think that's an interesting question. I think that's a question we may or may not get an answer to. Let's hope we get an answer to it. Let me open up another page here. Let's see here. Yeah, I don't know how somebody with 9,000 subscribers, just to be, and I'm referring directly to 12 gauge. I don't know where he got 9,000 subscribers and he only has 25 viewers in that stream right now. And I have 2,750 subscribers, and on just YouTube I have 41. But as a total from the combined sites, there's quite a bit more. Okay, so I'm glad. Why would Miss Chapin say that 2 a.m. will always be a dark time? Only Miss Chapin can answer that question. So, and it seems to imply that the murders took place at 2 a.m. But because we don't understand the full context of her statement, we don't know. We just don't know. What is she referring to? Is she referring to something that happened before Ethan and Zana got back to the home? Is she referring to something that happened once they got back at 2 o'clock? Or was she referring to the crimes? Is she inferring to the public the crimes took place at 2 o'clock? And I think that there's enough information now that it's safe, whether it's correct or not, it's safe to say that there's no evidence from the home. There's no direct evidence from the home that makes the 2 a.m. time a valid consideration. And I hope you can understand what I just said. And as I explained the killings beginning at 417, listen to the facts that we have, and then try to look for similar facts surrounding any particular time that you guys may think or believe, which I recommend you don't do, or believe that this crime occurred. And I'm curious if in the chat, what people commonly consider, what have you come to consider is an accurate time for the crime? Is it 4 a.m. to 4:20 as initially given to the public? Is it 4 a.m. to 4:25 or 4:30 as it was expanded upon, which makes no sense? And here's a kicker. If the suspect vehicle 1 drove away at a high rate of speed at 4:20 a.m., what happened after 4:20 a.m. for them to continue to expand the timeline to 4:30? Is that an omission of other people in the property, which is really the only sensible explanation one can make? Was it a single killer that sped away at 4:20 a.m., as they've said over and over again? Or when they expanded it to 4:25 and 4:30, why would they make the expansion when the car they claimed was the carrier of the murderer sped out at 4:20? So that's recorded on tape. That time is established by what they've gotten from videotape from surrounding homes. So if you're going to accept okay, but see, Isabel, that isn't any data of fact. So the 2 a.m. you could see it if you went to a nightclub, you would see most of the activity that you're calling out. If you went to a party at someone's home, if you went to a whatever, forget calling it the grub truck. If you went to a restaurant that's commonly frequented by college goers at that time in the morning, you can agree that most of what you're hearing or seeing at the grub truck is consistent with that behavior. Fair enough? And there's nothing specific at 2 o'clock that can connect to the crime being committed at 2 o'clock. Is that a fair assessment, Isabel? And if not, why not? And so let's just have this conversation. That's why I offer a link for anybody in the chat room to join into the stream as a guest and assemble information that would show us that the timeline 4 to 420 is wrong, and there's a timeline that was earlier, later, or some other time that you could support with facts that we can all put our hands on. Yeah, and I suspect very few, if any of you, are going to be able to do anything except present innuendo of events that took place, of people running down the street, of people being questioned or pulled over by the police. Those aren't evidence of action at King Road or Queen Road. That's evidence of something. No, I wish you would get up, Thomas. I think you have a great mind. And, I'm very easy to get along with unless you get into the mode of utter ignorance and you dig your feet in. And the conversation I think that I'm presenting to the panel tonight and to the group in the chat, that's very reasonable. Show us a time that you can establish the crime took place with information that's directly connected to the house and the crime scene. If you can do that, more power to you. You may have noticed something, you may have read something we've missed, you may have caught something in a court hearing that we missed, or a hearing we didn't see. That's perfectly fine, right? I don't want to hear about Dateline or when you're in 12 gauges stream, he's saying they had 8,000 videos. So what? There's probably 1 trillion videos a day made. And because the police gathered 8,000 videos, I don't want to pat them on the back. I only want the one or the very few videos that can confirm Brian Koberger's presence at that crime scene. That's it. And even more importantly, that it confirms that Brian Koberger was at that crime scene between the hours of 4 and 4:20 a.m. as originally alleged. And really, is locked in stone when you think about it. You can't really change 4 to 4:20 when your argument is the vehicle that he drove there left at a high rate of speed at 4:20. You can't consider 4:25 or 4:30 based on the actual facts that they're telling us are facts, right? So, yeah, Thomas, don't be bashful. I mean, people can't see you. You have an avatar, and it's a disservice to all of us not to get you up here. If you have, and don't come up just to confirm me, or I don't need people stroking me. If you have a different opinion or a different piece of information that forms a different opinion, man, that is just awesome. It's just awesome. That's why I invite people up. Look, I've said it. You people have said it. How many people heard me tearing to Kim, and how many people have heard me say recently, I probably owe Kim a good apology. So even when I'm at my deepest asshole, I don't defend being an asshole. When I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Especially if I'm being an asshole and I'm as wrong as it appears I'm wrong when it came to Kim. I mean, you have to be able to eat the shit you serve, or you're just not real. I really think you should click on the link, Thomas, and come on up here. Yeah, and you know, Mean Mama. What's up, Mean Mama? At this point, let me see here. We have more than twice the amount of people 12 gauge has, and 12 gauge has 8,999 subscribers. and he gets the same 25 idiots in there every time he streams. They're in this little tiny echo chamber. Kara, there is some factuality to Kara's statement. Look at this. Oh, I gotta go back into my stream. I'm clicking on it in YouTube. Well, Thomas, that's fantastic if we think a lot alike. Listen, I'm so happy when people can show me that I'm wrong, because now you turn me on to something that I missed. Right? And I'm one of them people. I definitely want to know the truth. You're assertive, Sarge. Never heard of half of these creators. Well, you're not missing anything with so many of these creators. So let me make this statement now, and why I can say, and I can be absolutely confident in this statement. The only evidence of activity at that house that's directly connected to the crime itself is at 4:17 a.m. There's no other information that's been released in any form that can contradict this with the equal tenacity of this information. You can make suppositions, you can guess, you can suppose, but nothing that you have in your head to a timeline is more powerful and more devastatingly accurate than what I'm going to give you now. 4:17 a.m. is a key moment in time, because at 4:17 a.m., the actual crime itself is being recorded. It's being recorded on a camera approximately 50 feet away from the home. It's also being responded to by Murphy, who begins to bark from 4:17 a.m. and continues for up to half an hour. And in addition to that, Bethany Funk texts Dylan Mortensen at 4:19 a.m., a mere minute and a half later from 4:17, asking what the fuck is going on, or what the fuck. So at 4:17 a.m., folks, there is a trio of events that take place that confirm that there is a crime in progress taking place inside of that residence. This cannot be debated. This cannot be disputed. This is supplied to us electronically. It's not an opinion of an individual. It's audio recordings and text messages. And there are three events, if not four events, that all happened beginning at 4:17. And the entire crime itself continues forward unquestionably from 4:17 forward. To our knowledge, and to the evidence and testimony supplied to us at this point, there is nothing at 4:16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4 a.m., 3:59, 3:58, 3:57, 3:56, 3:55, 3:54, 3:52, 3:51. Aha! The closest thing we have to normality happens at 3:50 a.m. when Dylan Mortensen adds a new contact to her phone. From 3:50 a.m. until 4:17 a.m., there is nothing hide nor hair to indicate any disturbance, any fighting, or any crime occurring within the residence of 1122 King Road, to include the surviving roommates and the victims, to include electronic means or behavior of the one pet that was in that home, Murphy. From 3:50 a.m. until 4:17 a.m., nothing happens. It's a black fucking hole. Now, that doesn't mean nothing happened. What this does mean is that is an onboard observer, as an onlooker, there is no question that from 3:50 to 4:17, it's quiet. But at 4:17, a unique situation develops. And from 4:17 forward, that situation continues until approximately 4:30 a.m. and beyond. It begins with a dog. It begins with a recorded thump. It begins with a recorded whimper. And it begins with Bethany and Dylan's communications, which I am going to suggest those communications took place as the crime was in progress. The first communication was from Bethany to Dylan. Bethany in the basement on the bottom floor contacted Dylan on the second floor, who's in the middle of it all, with Bethany asking Dylan, what the fuck? So, the title of the stream, The Killings Began at 4:17 a.m., is an absolutely accurate analysis of the data that we have. And there's nothing in the data that can contradict this assessment. And I think that's an important point. Okay? No, that's not true. I want you, Elizabeth, and I want you folks that have access to the text messages to reread the text messages. I want you to adopt the point of view that these text messages are occurring while the crime is in progress. You're viewing the text messages for after the crime occurred. That is a mistake. The text messages, when viewed in the context, were made during the commission of the crime, not as an involved member, but as an observer or a person in that home. The text message at 4:19 took place right after the dog started going crazy and the thump and the whimper. Bethany's text messages occurred during the events of what happened that night, not after and not before, but during. Now go read the text messages, folks. Go read them with the context of, I know it makes sense, Beach Babe. It makes more sense than any of the other explanations we've been wrestling with. No, that's it. No, you're DW, that's not accurate. Do you think, I don't know about DNM. I'm sticking with the timeline, a timeline that's confirmable through court proceedings and documentation supplied to us by both the defense and the prosecution, and the fact that Ann Taylor, questioning that timeline, said to the judge, the dog started barking at 4:17 a.m. and didn't stop for as many as 25 minutes after that. Yeah, the PCA I'm ignoring here. Although the PCA does have some comment or some accusation similar, just remember that some of the stuff in the PCA was derived from the downloads of the phone, and some of the information from the PCA wasn't available to them. After they arrested Brian, then they went, well, maybe it was, but they hadn't really contextualized it yet. But the download of all of these cameras, the text messages, the acknowledgement by the defense and the prosecution that the dog began its barking at 4:17 a.m. That is a key moment in time, folks, 4:17. And I highly suggest that that's going to be one of Ann Taylor's major arguments. Hey, Great Pearl. One of their major arguments is going to be Murphy and Murphy's behavior from 4:17 for as many as 30 minutes after that time. Yeah, they claim a vehicle sped away at 4:20 a.m. White, red, green, blue, brown, doesn't matter. They do make the claim the vehicle sped away at 4:20 a.m. So, what do you guys in the chat room have to say about any of this? Anything? Let me see here. Let me hide the comment. And I want you to see the banner. These killings began at 4:17 a.m. And the evidence is there to support that argument. Is that argument right? I don't know. But I can tell you that it's the most accurate summation of facts that are a part of this criminal proceeding. I don't know. She has to answer that. You see, we can all agree on this. We've all been suspicious of this 13-minute or less timeline, right? So a number one in the chat room, folks. When you were told this crime took place between 4 o'clock and 4:20, were you not suspicious of the immensity of the crime, the damage inflicted in the short period of time that was there? And when they further narrowed it down to a vehicle that parked after 4:07 a.m. and then left the vehicle to enter the home through a tree line. Okay. Were you then not more suspicious that it was that car that left less than 13 minutes later? The timeline, can we agree 1 or 2? Yes or no? That we all have a problem with the timeline and that we've all been searching to try to understand the timeline. Isn't that a fair assessment? 1 for yes, 2 for no. Mean mama. I'm not going to name names, but I do have a list of names on a piece of legal paper that if they enter the stream, whether you like them or not, I'm going to ban these people. They will not be allowed in my stream. Okay. So Moonbreaker says no. Explain why you don't have an issue with the time frame that they've given us. Because Moonbreaker is the only one that has said 2. They did paint themselves in a corner. There's no doubt about it. There is no doubt about that. And I want to thank the 70 viewers from YouTube, which is almost triple the viewers of a fellow streamer that has 9,000 fucking subscribers. And that's that's the troll channel right there. That's where they all coalesce at 12 gauge. That's where the trolls move in and hang out. Moonbreaker, I didn't catch your answer. Why do you say timeline is no way? Their timeline is F. Okay. All right. Their timeline is highly suspicious and questionable because if somebody entered that home at 4 o'clock or at 4:07, and then if it's somebody that entered that home began a murdering spree shortly after 4:08 or 4:09, we have an issue with that because the evidence tells us that's not true. And the evidence that tells us that's not true is the activity that takes place at 4:17 a.m. 4:17 a.m., folks. A number 1 or a number 2. 1, yes, you can now see this, or number 2, no, you don't see it. But at 4:17 a.m., electronic information has been provided to show all of the activity between the dog, the electronic video and sound recordings, and the activity between the 2 surviving roommates all start within 4:17 to 4:19 a.m. Right? We all can agree with that. So what was going on from 4:17 a.m. until and 4 a.m.? More importantly, what was happening between 3:50 a.m. and 4:17 a.m.? And based on the information that we've been available to see, fucking nothing. Fucking nothing happened. And nothing happened because we have no communication between the occupants. There was no concern for Kaylee. There was no concern. No, Moonbreaker, you're wrong. I've not seen where the video that shows or that states the thump and the whimper and Taylor's statement in court that Murphy started barking at 3:17 and Dylan's communication Bethany and Dylan's communication starting at 3:19. Or I'm sorry, 4:19. So 4:17, 4:18, 4:19. That span of it's under 3 minutes, literally, because from 4:17 to 4:19, which I think it was 4:19 on the dot, it's about a minute and a half between the video picking up the whimper and the thump and a dog barking and Bethany texting Dylan, what the fuck? So there is no 3:17. You've got that completely incorrectly. You're thinking about the TikTok where Zaina was said to be on TikTok at 4:12 in the morning. That turned itself out to be actually 3:16 in the morning. If not TikTok, then the DoorDash order. But I think it was TikTok. And the DoorDash order was made on Ethan's phone, not Zaina's. So your 3:17 is wrong. That 4:17 has never changed in the 2.5 years this case has been there. Well, but to say that nobody did, Mama, isn't accurate because, in fact, they did. Right? Nobody leaves behind one but two. Well, yeah, they do. This person or people did. Well, Brian Kohlberger is a criminal genius that did all kinds of stupid things. But when you analyze the accusations against Brian Kohlberger, you see that none of the accusations are facts. They're a theory. Right? I think, Moonbreaker, maybe you had a little bit of misunderstanding about the timeline. And that's fair. We all make those mistakes. All of us, me included. And understanding that 4:17 is a unique moment in the history of Idaho. It was at that time that a video camera picked up data that came from a home where 4 multiple homicides occurred. Okay? That is when the beginning of the crime, in all fairness, and I think even Gray Pearl wouldn't disagree with this, the crime and the murders began at 4:17 a.m. And they continued on for as much as a half hour from 4:17 a.m. What say you, Great Pearl? Because I know you like to be argumentative. Can you punch a hole in this particular analysis that I'm making? Yeah, you're very argumentative. And sometimes you're arguing and you're in agreement with me, but you frame your agreement in such a way as to create an argument. And it's just frustrating for me sometimes. You make me crazy, bitch. Okay, Gray Pearl. Is the assemblage of facts connected to my statement? Are they sensible and reasonable, or am I creating a conspiracy theory? Because even though you make me crazy, you are somewhat clever. We almost always agree, but yeah, I speak plain English. I don't know what the fuck language you speak. But yeah, we can go with that their definition there, Great Pearl. Oh, and welcome to the people in the stream. The title of the stream is scrolling at the bottom of the stream window, the video window. And that is an assessment they made last night and today, reviewing the data from this case that's been made public. Yeah, I don't really know about a bank and bank footage or something, but I do think that it's fair. There may be some relevance to that, but I don't think that you can have that many coincidences occur in a minute and a half. Right? We don't know if it was 4:17 and 40 seconds or 4:17 and 10 seconds. I know Bethany's response was like at 4:19 almost exactly. So from 4:17 forward, if 4:17 and the video picked up its first noise, the whimpering or the thud or the dog bark, those 3 events were picked up beginning at 4:17. And Bethany's statement or her questioning or her sending the first text message, it was Bethany to Dylan. And I don't think you can have that many events take place in that short of a span of time and they not be connected. Yeah, I don't know anything about Ted Bundy or why they're even connecting that. What up, Love Tina? Thank you there, Grateful. I think its hypothesis is extraordinarily reasonable because in that timeline of events, we don't really have anything coming together that consecutively in a row other than the information coming from Dylan and Bethany's phones, right? I text you, you text me, I call you, you call me back. And these things are happening in rapid succession, seconds or minutes go by, but they're all contained within that same grouping, right? So from 4:19 until 4:30 a.m., there's a continual communication between these two. And so that's important. So this idea that they didn't hear or were not aware of something is a narrative that's been produced on the internet because of people's, you're just beside yourself. It's like, how could these people not hear anything? Well, you have to let that go. This evidence that they've given us shows us that at 4:19 a.m., they were aware something was happening. There's no question about that at all. What they heard or what they observed, we're not sure. But without a single shadow of doubt, no doubt at all, Bethany and Dylan both were aware that something was currently happening in that home. Not had happened, not happened 2 hours earlier, not happened an hour earlier, but was immediately happening upon Bethany's text to Dylan. They were aware. Their awareness is supported by the capture of the camera and the behavior of the dog. Okay? Excuse me. And I think that this narrative, I think even Lana wouldn't have an argument with this narrative. Right. It'll be through the facts. That's where he's going to be convicted or he's going to be exonerated. It'll be through the filing of facts, the argument of facts. We do have, where am I at? X. We have 35 viewers on X. Hi, viewers. You're welcome to jump. I'm going to put a link in. You can click on this link. You can join this called StreamYard, and I can bring you in as a panel guest. Right here. Link it here. Anybody is willing to come up and be a guest on the panel. Well, I'm not actually, I guess what I'm trying to do most importantly here is two things. Stay away from conspiracy theories. Stay away from solving the crime. And be more interested in what information is verifiable about the crime. And once having this information, make it make sense. Yeah, we don't know that is not part of that tape. We don't know that. Maybe, folks, and this is possible, maybe there was screaming going on prior to 4:17. It's very possible that there was activity going on, but clearly at 4:17, something was happening that alerted the dog, that a camera picked up, and that created what we're being told is Bethany's first communication with Dylan. In fact, they may not be true. That may not be the first communication between these two young women. But the other telling thing within this time period from 4:17 forward is we can conclude that both Dylan and Bethany had a serious concern for 4 roommates in 2 different areas of that home. And we can make that conclusion because of the text messages that were being sent to those roommates from the survivors. So we can reasonably conclude that Dylan and Bethany knew something was going on. something serious enough or something so far out of place that you cannot explain it away by saying, well, this was a party house. Something that says that it wasn't a party house. Another way to confirm that this was not a party house, or that this was not something that would have happened to be heard on a regular basis within a party house. That conclusion can be made very simply by the fact that neither roommate left their rooms to investigate or to join the party. Right? We know this because that's what we're being told. If that, right, you only have what you have for data. So whatever was happening wasn't consistent with things they would have normally heard during a normal night of fun in that house. Yeah. I appreciate that, Beach Babe. And I honestly think you can make sense of what they've given us, and what they've given us tells a story. Let's see, what is this? Click the link if you're on the phone. YouTube will automatically turn off in the background. If you're on a computer, click the link. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you don't need to have a camera. You don't need to have an image of yourself. Listen, I've had trolls up on this thing because I didn't know they were trolls, and I figured it out once they were in here, and I just blocked them. You could be somebody I can't stand and try to jump up in here. And if you want to have a conversation, if you want to show me where the facts that I've assembled are wrong, or my understanding of what I'm viewing is wrong, I have no objection to that. None at all. That tells us that there was more conversation, or there was likely more conversation between Dylan and Bethany that we've yet seen. We know that they were using multiple apps to communicate as well as direct text messages. Bethany's statement that Zaina was wearing all black, to me, sounds like a statement that she was making in reply to something Dylan must have said on Instagram, on Snapchat, or some other media that Bethany was following her on. And Bethany caught that comment and then said Zaina was wearing all black. And then the direct text back from Dylan is to explain, no, he had on like a ski mask, not one with a big hole, which is ironic that Dylan Mortensen said not the one with the big hole, which is the exact mask she later drew, which is the exact mask the officer proposed. In addition, documents released to the public that we reviewed today, they've been out there for quite a long time. You've all had an issue with these girls just going to sleep and not waking up until 10:30. And the reason you've had this issue, and the reason this has even been part of the conversation, is because the state of Idaho, the prosecution and law enforcement, assembled the data and presented the data to the public. And it said clearly that at 4:37 a.m., activity ceased and these two young girls went to sleep. The next thing the state shows you is a text message or a communication at 10:23 a.m., either to TikTok, LinkedIn, or something. So, in other words, in this single document, the statement they went to bed at 4:37 a.m. and all activity ceased is a lie, because in another document released by the state, it shows that Dylan Mortensen was on her phone from 5 a.m. to 6:30 a.m., which is a direct contradiction to the government's statement that they went to sleep. And then the government, to support that statement, to put you to sleep, in the document where they made that statement, the next text message they show starts at 10:23 a.m., giving you the idea and to help make you make the conclusion that from 4:37 to 10:23 a.m. these girls were asleep. The state did this. The state did it willingly, and it is a blatant fucking lie. Because in documents filed by the defense and in documents provided by the state, there is clearly knowledge of Dylan being on that phone from 5 to 6:30 a.m. Okay? So if you're one of these people that think he's guilty or innocent, you're just not paying attention to what the state is doing and what the government is doing. You can't have it both ways. These girls can't be asleep, and Dylan can't be on her phone for an hour and a half while she's sleeping. I don't care what she drank or what drug she took. She's not asleep. Okay? And why? You have to ask that question. Why would the government want people to believe that? Why would they want you to think that Dylan and Bethany went to bed at 4:37 a.m. and woke up at 10:23? There's too many of those little instances like that in their documents that make people that are interested in knowing the truth, which really, the truth is the last thing you really ever want to know, folks. I think ignorance is bliss. It's easy for the group of trolls that end up in 12 Gauge's stream to go in there and try to make fun of folks that look at situations critically, right? Yeah. There's a whole bunch of questions here that why they didn't do what they didn't do. But more importantly, there's a whole bunch of information in here that shows the state has been contradicting itself over and over and over again to push the narrative into Brian Koberger's lap. That is a fucking problem. That should be criminal. This case should not be a case ready for trial. This case should have been taken down a long time ago. I don't know whether they have shit to hide or not, folks. Sometimes it's much simpler than that. I don't know that you guys really grasp. I don't know if you really grasp the concept that these people are above you. They don't see you as, it's like the trolls from 12 Gauge's group. They're better than you. They're smarter than you. And I'm honestly, I don't think those people are stupid. I just think that they're very, very deep down inside. They're not happy with their own lives. And they'll do whatever it takes just to form a group. I mean, it's kind of sad as far as I'm concerned. If you're a streamer and you got 9,000 subscribers and you can only get 22 viewers in his streams, when you go into his streams, and I've been going in and out of them for ever since he started. I was going in there when he couldn't get more than 5 people. And then suddenly he's got thousands and thousands and thousands of subscribers, which is great. I'm happy for the guy. But how can you only have 22 people watching the stream? Right? I mean, there's something isn't right with that. In other words, I think R.F. Kennedy Jr. said this, or no, Elon Musk said this. Okay? And this applies to these trolls. I don't want the illusion of decency. I don't want the illusion of honesty. I don't want the illusion of caring. I want the reality of it. I want to be around people that do care, really care, and you could tell they care based on their actions. And when you look at the group that comes out of 12 Gauge's stream, they don't fit the actions. Everybody wants to think Jeff is a nice guy, but he's not. He is an internet troll. He really is. So is the other guy, Texas. And so is many of the other. I'll give you a list. Here, I said I wasn't going to read it. Fuck it, I'll read it. Leslie and Billy, they fit into that troll category. Texas. Kaylee Dine, LV Leah. Somebody Potter, CLO. Faraday. JD Hogg. These people are trolls. They agree because, in their opinion, they're on the right side because they can go and bring up a Dateline fucking show and say, see, they can go and pick up an article from Drunk Turkey or from some other asshole and say, see, and we know that the information that they're claiming is just fucked up. I hope that's true, Wolf. I hope that's true. I honestly don't really have an issue personally with Judge. I don't like that his background is in personal injury, but I can tell you that's a hell of a place to be a judge. You know, you got people that intentionally slip and fall and want to sue. You got people that were in a car accident that was minor and they're in there like, he severed my spine, and you're in there as a defense attorney trying to sue on behalf of people that in a lot of cases, not all of them, but in a lot of cases, the fucking client is full of shit. And when you're saturated with that every day of your life for years, and then you're given a criminal case, of course, that particular judge is going to be slightly biased, if not extremely biased, to the defense. But it's taken time. And I think you may be making a good point, Wolf Angel. He may be slowly coming around. What's going on there, Pearl? Necklace?
Hey, Sarge.
Why is
Can you
the
hear me?
boxing barking? Yeah, I hear you. Hang on one second. Why is the barking Murphy and not another dog? Okay, that's a fair assessment. But again, why is Ann referring to that barking that begins at 4:17 and continues for a half hour? Why isn't it more likely Murphy than some dog around the block, right? So I think the assessment that it's Murphy is based on the location of the camera and the other things that camera collected. And the fact that I think a dog barking from within a house is different from a dog barking outside. So the camera would pick up the carrying echoes of the dog bark outside. So there may be a way to distinguish between a dog in a house barking picked up on an outside camera and a dog outside barking picked up by the same outside camera. There's probably going to be an audible difference between the two. Right? So I just want to make that statement. And Ann is making the statement that Murphy started barking at 4:17 a.m. The camera picks up a dog at 4:17 a.m. and it picks up a thud and a whimper at around 4:17 a.m. So all of those events are taking place, prompting Dylan and Bethany to make communication with Dylan. What do you think, Gray? Is that an excellent or an awesome assemblage of fucking data? Yo, are you muted?
Yeah, I'm muted.
What the hell are you doing?
I just came to hang out. Don't really have much to offer. Just thought I'd keep you company for a little bit.
Well, you need to answer that. When I assemble this timeline from 4:17 and all the events captured electronically and the actions of the survivors all happening at that time, isn't that an awesome catch and an awesome assemblage of data that says
It is.
if
And
any
I'm
time
not
is
surprised.
listen, if any time denotes the time the murders began, it is exactly that time and those actions. What say
Four
you?
seven. So you're saying the PCA and everything is correct, and it's like 4:17 and only took what, 8 minutes?
No.
No.
I'm saying the PCA is completely inaccurate, that the crime did not start prior to 4:17 and it continued on well after the car left at 4:20.
Okay.
And I
I
promise
agree
you,
with that.
Ann will make this argument.
Yeah, I agree with that.
See, look at that. Mean Mama says, I think Ann's whole argument was that time frame. But I don't think anybody has connected that argument to these other electronic facts, which make her argument even stronger. No, there's no evidence that the timestamps have been altered. Ann's never made that argument, never filed a motion. There's been no argument that the timestamps on the electronic data has been altered as far as what we've been given at this point. Has there, Gray? You don't know, right?
I don't know, Sarge. I honestly, like, I knew everything about this case a year ago, and then when Sebastian hit, I got entangled up in that, and I really don't know. Like,
Have they
I pick
found
up
him yet?
little things here and there. But for the most part, like, I there's certain people that I take their word for things, and you're one of them.
Have they found Sebastian?
Hell no.
Have they made any arrests or charged anybody?
Nope. Nope. And it's died off. Like it has reached the inevitable point of YouTube true crime where um he's forgotten. Like it's done. Even Tony and Seth and all of them have retreated. Nobody's saying anything. Like it's sad.
It's gone cold.
Yeah, I think so. At least on the YouTube streets, it definitely has.
I've heard nothing on it in the media, but I don't really watch the media because I don't want to be told how to think. I have a hard
Mhm.
enough time telling myself how to think.
Yeah. No, I don't watch the media either.
No,
But
I think,
yeah, it's a shame.
Mandy, I think you're absolutely wrong there. Ann has already made the strenuous point of Murphy's behavior beginning at 4:17 a.m. I don't think she's going to try to make the argument that things happened earlier. I think she's going to vehemently stick with evidence that can be verified. And we have nothing released thus far that suggests any activity in that property was taking place prior to 4:17. All was quiet. And the last bit of activity was Dylan Mortensen adding a contact on her phone. And from then at 3:50 a.m., all quiet until 4:17 a.m., which is where what is being told to us is documented electronically. Murphy ain't telling us, right? Murphy
Do
don't
we
speak of the English.
do we know who the contact was that she put in her phone? Because
No,
that's
and I don't
bizarre
even know if
at that
that's
time
relevant.
of night.
Yeah.
Well, it's certainly odd behavior. Like if you've been out drinking all night and then you come home and you put I don't know. You'd think that
Well,
you would do
I
that
don't know.
while you were out, or the
No, it's
next
not like
morning.
it was when we were kids, bro.
Mm, mm.
It's
Speak
not
for
like it was
yourself, mister.
when we well, no, you got to be deep in your
I'm
40s or maybe
kidding.
50s. You're up there.
I'm
Don't give me
49.
none
You
of that
know that.
shit. You,
Yeah,
you, you
no.
ain't no spring chicken, okay? You've
No,
matured
I know.
into an old hen.
Bok bok. Go ahead.
There's no argument, folks. Sarge, see, I can make great analysis based on facts. And yeah, young chicken, spring chicken's an old hen. No argument from her.
Nope. Can't argue that fact.
Yeah. Me, I was a young cock. Now I'm just an old rooster. It is what it is, folks. Shit happens and time passes. And one of the biggest things you'll enjoy as you age is the terror your own ass presents yourself.
Oh God, here we go. Don't sneeze.
That's one of the
Don't
most
trust this.
terrifying things you face as you get older. What once was a humorous
Sneezes.
fart turns into a wet pair of underpants. It's terrible. You could blast wind and get people to flee and laugh and and oh, you nasty man. And it don't
What
play
happens?
like that when you get older.
Yeah, can you have a explosive sneeze?
You can have an explosive event in the middle of the night where
I
you
know.
pray to your creator that thank God I wore underwear for the first time in years. And your whole house hasn't been sprayed down by your own ass. And you're like grateful that it's just confined to your legs on the floor you're standing on.
Oh God.
Life gets fucking crazy and nobody really tells you any of this.
No, they sure don't.
Right.
Yes, I'm with you.
All of a
You're
sudden,
neat.
one day you're driving to work, you go to pay gas, and you got to turn around and go home and change your fucking shit. It's like, what the fuck is this all? If you call work, oh yeah, I'm going to be late. Traffic. Just tell I shit my pants on the way to the office. I'll be in.
Well, there's other
We
things
should
that
be
happen.
honest in all things, right? If we were all honest, we wouldn't be shocked when these things start blasting out of our backside. We'd be like, yep, I knew that was going to happen someday. And here it is.
Gotta go. I'll be back. No, that's funny. Yeah, I hear you.
Right? How many times have you got to race to the bathroom, right? It's insane.
A
You
lot,
find it
but
all of a
mostly
sudden
it's
you
just
got
for because I have to pee pee, and I'm not
I
like
used to be
in the
able to go
morning when
for
I wake up
hours.
in the morning. I'm like literally doing the waddle until I get there.
It's crazy.
Yes,
And it's an unexpected life experience that is not pleasant. It's
but
funny.
we all go through it.
You could frame it in a way that's humorous, but I'm telling you, once the pleasure of blasting gas is gone, what you're left with is a threat that is unknown. So your ass turns into your personal terrorist, and you're just not aware of that until you're aware of that, and then the rest of your days that
It's
you're
so
walking
true.
the earth,
You worry about
if
it.
you live to 100, you're gonna always worry that your ass is gonna fucking squat
Mhm.
out on you. You're like,
Yep.
really?
Yep. And God
Right?
forbid you can't. Never mind. I'm not going there. Forget it.
I sat down thinking I had to take a hell of a crap, and I blasted a fart out that made me laugh for 10 minutes. If I'd have known that's
Oh,
what it was
shit.
going to be for sure, I would have just probably gone to the store and done it in line, which I've done.
Oh, sorry. You're too much.
You can't trust a fart when you're over 50. There you go,
Mm,
Susan.
It's true.
Right?
It's true. Or a sneeze, and I'm gonna double down and say or a sneeze if you're a lady, because the little pee
I'm
pee
telling
comes
you.
out sometimes.
I sneezed, and I'm swear to God, the explosiveness of that fucking discharge was just shocking. It was terrible. I was disgusted. I couldn't believe it. I stood in utter disbelief that this couldn't be real.
This is not my
Just
body. This is not
10
my
seconds
life.
ago, I was sleeping happily, and I got up to what I thought was going to be to go to the bathroom. It did.
Mhm.
Listen, I
We
didn't
don't
have to
belong
shit at
here.
3 a.m. I had to take a leak. And on my way, the terrorist reared his ugly fucking head and shot out of my backside. And I was like, oh, man.
Those are the times you're like, thank God I live alone. At least for me.
You guys want to get back into Idaho 4?
All right, sorry. I'll be quiet. I just came up for support
Oh,
anyway.
man. But it's good that we can laugh at the
Of course.
diversity we face in life, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Man, oh, man. So, anyway, folks, I'm pretty content and pretty comfortable making the statement that the killings began at 4:17 a.m. and that the conversations between Dylan and Bethany were conversations that were taking place during the event, not after and not before, obviously.
And if I broke the ice a little bit for anybody in chat that wants to click that link, please do it. Sarge is great to talk to. Don't
Listen,
be
I'm telling
scared.
you, and
Nothing to
let me
be
just say,
scared of.
there's nothing that we discussed, whether you agreed with the fart conversation or not, that's not true. That's what I mean. I really try to stick to facts. I don't give a fuck what the conversation is. If we want to talk about watermelon, I'm going to stick to the facts that I'm aware of about a watermelon. I'm not going to
He
bring in
does.
conspiracy theories or listen to Officer Payne describe a watermelon to me. I'll figure it out. Right?
We're cool tonight, but we have definitely butted heads many times on things. So yeah, it's good conversation. Makes you
And
think.
the timeline that this crime that a car took off at 4:20 a.m. is just not relevant to the crime starting at 4:17. It's not consistent with the continuing conversation that lasted till 4:30. And we don't know what happened after 4:37 a.m. But that here's another thing I want to throw into the mix. Is we've been told that Dylan heard somebody say to the effect, "It's okay, I'm here to help." And that's a statement that would appear to be made to a living human being. Do you agree with that, Gray?
I do, yeah. But
And was that statement made to Dylan as she crossed the hallway and witnessed Zaina on the floor? When she
you read my mind. That's what I was
right,
gonna
and,
say.
and
I
in
don't think she
addition,
heard it. I think it was said to her.
where was the chair in relation to the doorway? Somebody sat in a chair and left blood stains on the chair. Now that was either a victim, okay, if there was a scenario of multiple perpetrators
Mm-hmm.
holding her back and then Ethan getting taken out in front of her, which I consider as possible, or if it was the perpetrator, did the perpetrator witness Dylan cross that room or come across that hallway and look and make the statement, "It's okay, I'm here to help"? And then she continued on to Bethany's room and locked the door. Right?
It's definitely plausible to me. I've always thought that the "I'm here to help" was a message to her, to
I
Dylan.
don't think a government can stream it for money, but I could be wrong, Carol. I'm not sure that the government channels receive a revenue from that. But you could look. I'm sure you could figure that out by going to some of these court cases where they're streaming and see if there's a place to donate or if they get any monetary gains from clicks. They may have, but usually, if there's a monetary gain, it's because there's a facilitator of the stream and or a news agency, and they would be the people making the revenue, not the court itself. That's
Let
my
me ask you.
understanding, and I could be wildly wrong. What's that, Grant?
I wanted to ask you because you just kind of triggered something in my brain that I'm very uneducated on. But I know they switched judges. But back when it was Judge, didn't he open like his own YouTube channel to stream the trial from or
The court
something?
clerks would do that, but I'm not like my channel is I can get 100,000 people in there. Not that I will, and there's no revenue generation from this channel.
No, I understand. I absolutely
No,
understand.
but
I know
I'm
that you
only
don't
pointing
need
that
it.
out.
I know that.
Listen. I'm pointing that out to tell you that the courts are able to create a stream like I did and not make any money from it.
Oh, absolutely. Of course they are. That
Yeah.
was my question is with this new judge, did they kind of 86 that and, say that they're going to, you know, stream it from a judicial website rather than a social media site?
Well,
No.
there's no talk of cameras on water towers because there's been no talk of cameras on water towers. I mean,
Okay.
you're making a judgment that they caught something worthy.
Well,
But they
wasn't there,
collected they did
maybe I'm
collect.
mistaken, but wasn't there a thing where when it was Judge, like he opened his own YouTube channel or something and
Yeah,
said,
yeah.
okay. All right. That's weird. That's
But
weird.
but but it was a court thing. So it's not
It's
weird,
still
really. No.
weird.
Why? He's giving
Mm,
access to the public. Who cares if it's
via YouTube? They're a
yeah,
government agency. They can get access any
the
way they
Department of
want.
Defense, the State Department, the President of the United States can stream on YouTube. There's nothing wrong
You-
with that.
Okay.
Yeah. But why does no one talk about the cameras on the water tower? In fact, they
Wow.
collected 8,000 videos. We don't know that there isn't collection of the water tower. So the reason why it's not talked about is there's never been any mention of any footage relevant from any tower,
Right.
right? Yeah, it was through the county, according to Curious Rose, not Judge's personal channel, which is what I
Okay.
suspect happens.
No, I appreciate that because I'm not, like I said,
Yeah.
I haven't been 100% tuned in, so that's good to
And
know.
it's always baffled me why women with nice colored hair dye their roots like that. It's always strange. I don't know why women do that.
What are you talking about?
I'm looking at a Curious Rose, RN.
Oh.
See how dark her roots are? Why would she dye just her roots? I don't get
Jackass.
it.
Okay.
Yikes. Oh, well, what
Yeah.
are you going to do?
Where's your
Buck up
Where's your
from the floor up.
co-host? I'm tired of being his stand-in every, 3 weeks. Where's your co-host been?
I can only speak for me. I don't know.
I know, I'm just
And
messing
I
with you.
do I do appreciate if people are able to like the stream. That helps it get in the algorithm, and it does not mean that it makes me any money. But what it does mean is
Sarge
that
does not need the money, people. I tell you that right
yeah,
now.
what it does mean is that this particular understanding of events gets shared to more and more people. Once you break 100 likes, and
Absolutely. Yep.
there's 157 of us in here, and 110 of us are purely from YouTube. And
Hit that
and we have
like,
70 likes,
motherfuckers.
which is fantastic. I'm not complaining, but I'm just suggesting that it allows the stream
Yeah.
to be put in front of people that otherwise wouldn't see it by
No,
simply
you're
giving it
absolutely right. The
100 likes.
algorithm will
Yeah,
not pick you up until you reach 100,
yeah,
at
yeah.
least.
So it gives the content legs,
Hmm.
and hey, maybe it doesn't deserve legs, and so therefore you don't need to like it, which
Nah,
is fair enough,
it
which is
does.
fair too, right?
We wouldn't be here if it didn't.
Yeah, I mean, I could say that I've slowly over time grown, from just a
You're
handful
a
of
lot
viewers
more
to
patient and tolerant than you were.
for yeah,
I'm,
but
talk-
there's
I'm
some people
talking
that
years ago.
I can't really wrap my head around dealing with ignorance, and I just have such a distaste for it
Well, that's
that I
understandable.
can't help.
But
I
when
guess
people genuinely have
show that.
questions or genuinely misunderstand or something like that, you've become a lot more patient than you first were, if you will,
Well,
when you
I
came
think
up as a
that's
guest on certain channels.
well that's because the majority of the people that do join this stream
Mm.
um are more people. They're more, they know me, but
They're
they're also
smart.
people that are willing to try to gather information and understand it, right or wrong, but try to do the process of understanding what we know.
I agree.
And not be so quick to jump into the Banfield or the grub truck or the frat or this or that or
Linda
tunnels
Lane.
or parachutes or reflections. And so
Yep.
that I'm more patient because I don't see a lot of that coming into the stream now, because the majority of the people that join the stream are more reasonable and interested in knowing the truth, which could take an eon to circle the globe, while a
Mm.
lie could circle the globe an infinite amount of times instantly. And that's the world that we've helped create. That's the world that we're a part of. I had some interesting conversations with some close friends tonight before I got on the stream. And the one thing I've always noticed, and I've said it here, is that the transition from childhood to adulthood is not only to learn to lie, but to accept that others lie as normal, rather than calling it out, rather than confronting it, rather than avoiding it. We just continue on with our day. And
Mhm.
that's to me is why there's so many issues on earth, so many issues amongst people, especially in the modern world. I
Well, I
bet
think
you
it's
tribes don't act that way.
no, but it's hard to get there, right? Like, if you've, I don't know.
Yeah. I
I'm
used to do
tired.
politics.
I
I used to do politics, and
know.
I'm answering us. So me, myself, and I did politics, and I used to have 28,000 followers on Twitter, and then I got banned when I was talking about autism, and then I came back, and then I was banned when I was discussing the John F. Kennedy assassination in connection to the civil rights movement and to the motive of the assassination being solely the civil rights movement, which would have brought the actors together that everybody keeps pointing fingers at. Back when he was killed, the CIA, the FBI director, the vice president, senators, congressmen, mafia, they all hated blacks. It was the one issue that united these haters. And so when you say a CIA agent pulled the trigger, I can't dispute that. I won't argue that. But the reason they coalesced into getting rid of Kennedy was because Kennedy was trying to give equal rights to the black citizens of this country. He turned his back on the Democratic Party, who were the KKK, that were no longer wearing the masks. They were in dressed suits and ties, but they were still the KKK. And they elected him, to the point where even the mafia helped cheat in Chicago to get him in office. And what does he do? He runs open arms to the black community and starts giving Martin Luther King access to the White House, gives him permission for for the march, for the speeches. And that it was that situation that when you analyze all of the data, it was that particular reason for a motive. And that motive in and of itself would would coalesce and bring people even from different political parties together, and people of common ground together. FBI, CIA, the Department of Defense, the mafia, that would be a common ground. And all of those people were affected, and all of those people never saw that really coming. And so Kennedy did turn his back on his political party. And that to me is the motive for his murder, not the Bay of Pigs, not the
So you're
military industrial complex, although those motives were enough for people not to like him, but they were also people that shows you that other agencies had issues with him. And they all agreed and they all coalesced and they turned their back or participated because of his open arm agreements with the black community. And I ran this through AI on X, and the answer from this computer program came back that his assessment of my understanding, or my analysis based on his assessment of known facts that were collectible through the internet, showed that it was 80% more likely that the motive of civil rights was the trigger that set in motion the assassination of John F. Kennedy.
so you're basically saying I know you have a sophisticated audience, um, for sure, but to dumb it down, you're basically saying that surprised that Democrats aren't really the tolerable party. They're actually the racist. And
Oh yeah, yeah, that's always
okay,
been the case,
yeah. Well, I know.
right?
I was
And
just,
there was
just wanted to make your
there
points
was
a
no
little bit more
change of
clear.
position. There was no change. The Democrats switched over and became pro-black. That never happened. That's a myth. The
No,
fact of the matter is
look at
that John
Margaret
F. Kennedy's
Sanger.
hang on, let me finish. The fact that
Sorry.
John F. Kennedy's civil rights bill was eventually passed under Johnson was because the vast majority of Republicans voted for it. So it was already in process. And what his vice president that took over said, I forget, Johnson, he said these niggers will vote for us for the next 200 years. And that was his exact language. And that's why I use that language. And I'm not suggesting people should refer to black people as niggers. However, that tells you all you need to know about the Democratic Party of 1963. That's how they viewed black America. And I think that it's reasonable. Like when I put together this assessment here, there's another example of taking a menagerie of data and a menagerie of opinion and fact and trying to sift it through to some common understanding. And I think that it was impressive that one of the world's most powerful AIs, which I don't believe in it, but you understand, the computer gave my probability an 80+% chance of being accurate as to motive. And then it went on to explain that the FBI director, the CIA director, the Department of Defense, all of these people and all of these Democrats would, even if they philosophically disagreed or even directly disliked one another, could sit at the table to get rid of Kennedy to stop the civil rights movement. Right? That's a very sensible analysis of that. More sensible than saying Russia did it. More sensible than saying the Cuban Missile Crisis did it. Right? And also, I'm
Yes,
glad,
I agree
Susan, you
with
said,
that.
let me go further. Is the duplicity of what happened and the interpretation that was peddled to the narrative peddled to the public by the media. All of that comes together. And the story that the Democrats and Republicans changed sides began at that moment in time. And now, what you look back in the last 70 years since that's happened, or 80 years, and look at what the Democratic Party has specifically done to Black America. And you can definitely make the conclusion that they did nothing except destroy the Black community. They tore up its family. They tore up with the rules of welfare. They helped tear it up. So when economic times befell the community, welfare was only allowed if there wasn't a man in the house. And that happened in all of your Democratic cities and towns. I got a gentleman, a good friend of mine today, that's trying to buy a piece of land to develop, and they have what they call a preferential assessment payment that has to be given to the town. It's like mafia. In order for him to develop this land, he has to put up $3,000 per spot that has to be paid to the town board. Or they won't even consider giving him approval. In other words, you have to subject yourself to the bribe, or you're not getting that. You're not going to be able to develop that land if you buy it. And that's the way the country's been handled, and the way this case has been handled, the Kohberger case. I don't really care what his political views are. As a matter of fact, I hope he is a Democrat who completely opposes my view on the world, because I'm not fighting for his innocence or guilt. I'm actually fighting for the proper enforcement and limited constitutional rights that the government is supposed to be following. They stepped way outside the bounds. When the FBI took a sample and ran to the databases they shouldn't be, and then they gave the Idaho cops the ID of Brian Kohberger, I'm arguing against that as being an unconstitutional act. They had no business going into the databases where the membership of those databases were told that their information would not be shared with law enforcement without the proper warrants. And the FBI backdoored those websites. I'm totally against that. I'm totally against the fact that once they were given the name Brian Kohberger, to the extent of anything else, to the exclusion of everything, they looked for only things that could impugn or try to imply or suggest that Kohberger is the only perpetrator. In light of all the other DNA samples on that property connected to that crime scene, the only sample they paid attention to was the one where they claimed to attach to Brian Koberger. I have a real problem with that. I think most
Or
viewers that pay
Matt?
attention to this do too, right? You got blood on a sheath and you don't do everything under the sun to identify that? You got blood under Maddie's fingernails. You got samples of DNA under 3 of them under her fingernails. You got blood on a glove. You got blood on a railing. You got the interior of the glove that was never searched, never swabbed. All of those extra pieces of data that are relevant to the crime, and the only thing you paid attention to is Brian. Makes no sense, man.
No, and maybe you can help me understand this part of it, because this was early on when I was, fully invested and keeping up on all the details. But it, to me, I don't understand, because it's such a simple concept and it's going to be very basic when I explain it. But I don't understand why it didn't happen. There is a thing called the fruit of the poisonous tree. Like right from jump, should that shouldn't that DNA sample that led back to his father and all the shouldn't that have been immediately fruit of the poisonous tree, not admissible?
I I don't know if you can go that far with it. That's a reasonable view. I can support that to a good extent. I honestly think that what happened here was they should never have charged him without first bringing him in and questioning him, and even if need be, surreptitiously collecting his DNA.
Yeah,
They did
people
none of
do
that.
do that all the time. But this was like the dads and
Yeah.
I mean, all those witnesses and all the pretrial stuff. Like it's
Mm.
it's not it's
Well,
not a sound way to identify a suspect.
I'll tell you right
And
now,
I
folks.
think it was proven, and I don't know why from at that moment it wasn't considered fruit of the poisonous tree, and anything connected to anything that they found after that would be thrown out or admissible, because you
To,
can't
to,
rely on evidence that brought you, you can't rely on evidence that you got from.
so even if it listen, even if it wasn't, here's where and the stream I was in with Dago earlier, points that I made was that the investigators weren't investigating. They didn't ask investigative questions. As Susan B says, the evidence they ignored and went to a microscopic piece of evidence and did everything they could with that, but nothing with the blood. And here's the other problem with that is they didn't enter that crime scene as microscopic evidence collectors. They entered and examined that crime scene as if they were looking for a candy bar thief. There
Mhm.
were no protective suits. There
None.
was
Mm-mm.
nothing to present or prevent the transfer of DNA, not just the investigators, but DNA that they picked up in their daily travels and interactions would also accompany them in that house and be spread. So
Now,
if you're going to look for microscopic DNA, it'd be like if you worked at Intel and you're going to make a computer processing chip. You cannot walk into any of those rooms without going through a system of cleaning, of completely being blown off, and a completely sealed dust-free suit being installed on you. And only then are you allowed into an area where microscopic dust can destroy the entire process. Therefore, if you're going to search for microscopic fucking dust, you should be prepared for the process of discovering it
Mhm.
when you enter the crime scene. And that was not done.
Mm-mm.
People in street clothes with cotton swabs sneezing into their arm. That one ugly looking crime scene investigator.
Yeah, yeah, yep, she sure
Right?
did.
People dropping gloves
They
on the ground
dropping
and putting them
stuff and
back in the
picking it up.
box.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Cops walking in and out, and the booties aren't being put in a collection bag. The booties
Yeah.
on their feet are not just to prevent them from spreading contamination. They're also used for collection of evidence.
Mm-hmm.
So
And they're
walking
gonna
across the
spin
floor
it.
that you picked, yes,
They're gonna
the blood
spin
on the
it to be
bottom of
like it
your
was a
shoes.
party house. There's DNA everywhere. There's no way that there would be no way we could isolate the killer's DNA. Hundreds of people were in and out that week. They'll spin it too, but I mean, yeah, no.
My
I
question was,
remember all of those scenes: sneezing, picking the shit up off the floor with gloves. Yeah, it was not. It was not
I don't know why you're asking
professional.
me. What were you a slave? I don't know what that means or who that question was directed to there, mean mama. they didn't like Brian's. Well, all of the stuff about
Tell
they
Mean Mama to click the link.
what?
Mean Mama was talking about clicking the link like an hour, like 30 minutes ago. Click the link, Mean Mama.
What link to come in here?
Yeah,
Yeah, she can come in here. I don't care who comes in here.
I know.
There you go. You know, but again, it's not. I think Eddie is really strong on saying that this was an intentional frame up, and I think Eddie's view is accurate. I kind of lean more towards the idea, though, that that's standard operating procedure. They come to a conclusion, and to the exclusion of all else, that's all they'll consider. Just like you see these people on YouTube, everyday people do this. To the exclusion of all else, Brian did it. And everything, that's Brian's car. That's Brian's car speeding away. And there's no factual evidence to support anybody owning that car or any occupant or occupants in the car. You cannot make that conclusion on any of the evidence supplied. You can tell that story, but the image of a car driving away because it's white and may or may not, may be an Elantra, isn't evidence of Brian in his car. And that's where a lot of these folks that are guilters, and then even people that believe in his innocence, will hang on that story, and they'll accept the story given to them by the authorities. Right? No, I think you're right, but I also think too that if not for YouTube and all of this other exposure, I really think that this case wouldn't be in court for the length of time that it's in court. These prosecutors and these media personalities really have a way of twisting things and laying things out to keep people's attention. Now, I also think it's somewhat the mentality of the people that argue he's innocent. And I'm not so certain that we can conclude either innocence or guilt, except to say that he's innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. That has got to be bestowed and respected and given to the gentleman. And facts have to take that away from him. Not the story that you witness a car leaving WSU. Suspect vehicle 1. And all of these images, and 8,000 is that 12 gauge was jumping down over. As 8,000 of these things were collected, the videos. And not one of them shows Brian Koberger's car conclusively. There's a problem there. So, what saith you there? Insane. Audacity of Idaho media is insane. Something from Harsh I haven't watched yet. Maybe I'll watch it later. That's unexamined evidence certainly raises doubts. Tunnel vision close, but that also describes the investigators. I mentioned not long ago that when they talked with Dylan Mortensen and Bethany, they weren't acting as investigators. They didn't ask specific questions. They knew they had something happening at 4:17 a.m. Why isn't there a question, Miss Mortensen? Do you remember if you saw the person in black before you heard the dog bark? Do you know that you made a statement that you believe or you think the statement was, "It's okay, I'm here to help"? Was that statement made before or after you saw the person in black? These kinds of questions would have helped create a sound narrative of information. And they didn't ask anything like that. They were asking leading questions, not probing questions. And that's what I mean when I say to the exclusion of all else. Dylan said herself, a ski mask, not one with the big hole. But later in an interview, after she had talked to Bethany, but in an interview with police, the police mentioned the baklava, or whatever you want to call it, which is a ski mask with one round hole. And Dylan said yes. She went with what the cop was telling her. Then she drew a picture of a ski mask with one solid hole, which is in complete contradiction to her interview answers that she gave the police. And that's just fucking crazy. It's either a ski mask with 3 holes in it or it's one of those ski masks with one opening for the face. And very strange that she was specific enough to tell Bethany that it was not one of those ski masks, but then alternatively describes and agrees with the police that that's the kind of mask that person was wearing. That's bad police work right there. Very bad police work. Did you see his eyes? Yes, but I don't know what color they were or anything. Did you see his eyebrows? Those questions are leading questions that should never have been presented to her. And yet they were. And her description, if you listen to her interviews and the interaction with the police, she becomes a part of the narrative the police are laying out for her. It's not a narrative she gave the police that they then wrote down, but their questioning formed her narrative. And that's very telling and very dangerous. And that's not how police work should take place. What say you there, Quiet Talks Too Much, Gray?
Nope. Sorry, Sarge. I got to drop. My daughter and her boyfriend just brought me ice cream.
Oh, yeah. Go
Sorry.
for it. That's fine.
All right. It was good talking to you. Thanks for having me up.
I just booted her ass because that's what we do up here. Boom, we boot you. I'm just a random person, but in all that struggle, the person who did this never lost grip on their weapon. Blood is oily, like scratches, all the damage, and he didn't drop any blood. Didn't drip it. Apparently not, Kara. And as a matter of fact, the very next day he takes a picture, or that very day, not the next day, that very same morning, he takes a picture, and there's not a scratch on his hand, and there's not a scratch on his neck or his face. Nothing. Bear with me. I do have an incoming call here. Sorry about that. Let's see. What did I miss? Interviewing Spoon, do shit about sexual motives. Yeah, the note. Listen, we can't even place Brian in that car. And we can't even make the car a part of the crime scene unless we accept without question this real shaky narrative. Right? It's very, very sketchy what we're seeing. And I think Dr. Gary that's just tragic that people come out and that's what I mean, all these conspiracy theories, but why hasn't anybody coalesced around what can be proven? There's no evidence that anything took place in that home prior to 4:17 a.m. There's no evidence, not suggested by anybody but the police. Their estimation of the time. And their estimation of the time based on the girl's phone usage puts a hole in that 4 o'clock timeline, because Bethany is saying around 4 o'clock. But the phone usage doesn't pick up until 4:19 is when it first starts, based on the data they've given us. So if the first communication between these two girls started at 4:19, the crime started at about 4:30. If you're going to be fair about what 4 o'clock actually means, 4 o'clock does not mean 4:19, 4:20. That's not 4 o'clock. That's closer to 4:30. So when she says about 4 o'clock, that people have interpreted could mean prior to 4 o'clock, but it couldn't be prior to 4 o'clock unless they're holding back information, which wouldn't surprise me. But with the information available to us, you can conclude without any remorse that there was no activity in that home related to these crimes until exactly 4:17 a.m. At 4:17 a.m., recorded information is available to show a crime in progress. The behavior of the survivors is consistent with the crime starting at 4:17. And when it ends, we don't know. And so we can be sure to say that from the last time Dylan used her phone at 3:50 a.m. until 4:17 a.m., all was quiet on the home front. Murphy wasn't going nuts. Exterior cameras near the home weren't picking up any information, and nothing relevant to the crime in progress was taking place. The camera outside that they claimed showed a vehicle parking at 4:07 or sometime after is the only information of anything happening around the property. But that in and of itself does not mean that the property was involved in the movement of that car. You see? Nothing can connect conclusively that vehicle coming to a rest at 4:07 and whatever seconds as having anything to do with this crime. There's nothing recorded. There's no response by the dog. There's no forced entry into the property. There's nothing. Well, a lot of people, these house cameras aren't really as good as they could be. Doesn't this remind you of the bank cameras where they show you a recording of a guy robbing a bank and it's all pixelated and blurry? And that looks like Cousin Joe. And it isn't. Turns out the guy that robbed the bank was Ralph, and he's not Italian. He's German. You're like, what the fuck? That looked like Cousin Joe. So a lot of these cameras that were being shown and these images are at night, and the cameras are just giving you the best that they can give, and it's not very good. Street cameras have license plate. I know they do. They do. You're right. But the cameras that are on the doors and on doorbells are part of security systems, are good showing things relatively close, but anything in motion at night with headlights, as we were witnessing, is not being recorded that well. And I don't think that's unusual at all. I think what's unusual is that the police want you to believe that they can identify that as Brian's car. That's what's unusual. Is that as poor as all of these images are, that they're just so good. Okay? They're just so good that they can tell you that's Brian's car. And yet, not a single human living being that's ever come across this case online and seen any of these images or videos, and even the police themselves, can show you no identifying feature that makes that exclusively the car of Brian Christopher Koberger. And there's things you would look for. Parking permits, bumper stickers, sometimes different stickers put on the windshield for parking or access into your apartment or for parking at a school. There are ways to identify dents, scratches, broken mirrors, damage to the side of the car. There are ways to uniquely identify some vehicles, not all vehicles. Two white pickup trucks, same year, make, model, can drive by and they can look exactly the same. However, if you're going to say that this is Brian Christopher Koberger's car, there should be an undeniable feature that you can point to and that we can all look at and say, ah, there it is. That's Brian's car. If you don't have that kind of evidence, all you have is a fucking story. And this isn't kindergarten. This is a guy's life, right? I do suggest and I do suspect that she moved through that home while that person was still in the home or persons. Based on the text messages and based on the timeline of 417 as being the time the crime began. Which is interesting because just so you know, folks, in one fell swoop, the information shared to you on this stream shows all the other streamers' conspiracy theories as irrelevant. They're factually irrelevant versus the data that I've given you tonight. Data that's verified and real. That's not something I'm connecting dots to from some other location or from some some adverse thought or some motive. These are pieces of information that are verifiably accurate. They're electronic. And more importantly, from the best witness of all, a dog. And the dog and the video aren't going to say what the cops want them to say. Right? And that's why I'm very, very, very comfortable with the statement that the crimes began at 4:17 in the morning. Not before, not after. And there you go. If you have a sunroof, something should be identifiable. Look, I had a white Corvette. And if you really looked at my white Corvette, there were distinctions on my car that set it apart from every other white Corvette made in 2021. Because I took it and I had items of the vehicle custom wrapped in black that the vehicle is not manufactured with, nor even offered with as an option from the maker. My white Corvette was uniquely identifiable to me. I've never seen, nor have I seen any images displaying the accents that I placed on my car on any other white Corvette. And that's what I mean. A lot of times vehicles will have identifying features. I had a red 2011 Chevy pickup truck years ago. The rear bedside on the passenger side was caved in from an impact. Okay? That vehicle was the same as any other red 2011 Chevy pickup, except for the big dent. So, hey, Denmark, how are you? So I've been on here for a little while now, an hour and 45 minutes. We do have 148 viewers. I'm going to look over into YouTube directly. Let's see what we got going on YouTube. We do have, and I would hope if you come in recently, we're at 89 likes. We got 95 watchers. Over on Rumble, we have 3 viewers. And we have 52 viewers over at X. Welcome, X people. Welcome, Rumble people. All 3 of you. Right? So that when it comes to the identification of that white sedan in that area, I also am going to say this, that the information released in the description of the white Elantra that left WSU and turned its phone off is 100% not Brian Koberger. And it's not openly admitted to by the police, but it's openly pointed to and proven by Ann Taylor and by cellular records that will show you the vehicle described as leaving WSU and heading towards Moscow physically is not possible to be Brian Koberger's car, because Brian Koberger's car maintained a cellular connection for 7 minutes beyond what is stated in the accusations. And these two events took place. It headed south and it connected to a separate third tower. Brian Koberger's phone is trackable south, releasing the connection to the tower that would connect it to Washington and to Idaho, and connecting to a tower heading south towards the Huawei Park or Lewiston area. These are facts. Now, because the police argue that suspect vehicle 1 that left WSU and headed towards Moscow at 4 something a.m. or not 4, at 2:52 a.m. Okay? Because they're tracking that vehicle, that if that vehicle is involved in this crime, that exonerates Brian Koberger immediately. Yeah, they will have to give testimony. And F in joke. I don't know what you mean by that. Do you guys understand? But this wasn't Cy Ray. This was Ann Taylor telling us this in open court. And in emotion, that his phone did not disconnect, did not get turned off. That there are handoffs between the towers. And at the time Brian's phone handed off to a tower south of where they claim he was going, and continued for 7 more minutes going south. The car they track cannot be Brian Koberger's car. And this is the problem that I find really difficult to even want to talk with people that argue guilt. The facts show suspect vehicle 1 cannot be Brian Koberger. The facts then must show that the vehicle that they're tracking around Moscow is the car from Pullman, which can't be Brian Koberger, which makes all of the tracking and all of these different directions and turns and stops and useless bullshit. Right? I would love to be a lawyer participating in this case. Suspect vehicle 1 is the wrong vehicle for Brian. However, suspect vehicle 1 may be involved in the crime. And however, suspect vehicle 1 conclusively cannot be Brian Koberger, based on the collection of information by law enforcement itself. He did demand a speedy trial, but then they indicted him. He also demanded a preliminary hearing, and they went around that and indicted him rather than to give a preliminary hearing. This case would have been dead at a preliminary hearing. This is interesting. Cricket Day is doing what most of us do every day. We see the world through the eyes that we have and our view of the world. And we don't look at it cynically. The prosecution has to know this. How are they going to explain it? That doesn't matter to them. The prosecution's job is to convict Brian Koberger. The prosecution's job is not to get to the truth. It's to convince a jury of 12 that Brian Koberger did this. This is what the American justice system has become, both politically and criminally. No, Brian waived the right to a speedy trial long ago, and I don't think he should have. But the problem they were having was they weren't being given discovery, BH. Everything that we know now should have been out in the public back then. The text messages, the 911 call, Okay. All of the things that we see now are being given to us 2+ years into this case. And that is a problem. Why the vehicle description suspect vehicle 1? Is there 2, 3, or 4? Yeah. Yeah, because they knew that Brian Koberger's car was not suspect vehicle 1. But by calling it suspect vehicle 1, they can include Brian Koberger's car. You see? This is something I want people to really pay attention to. None of this is about the truth. The truth no longer is part of your justice system. That is not what your justice system is. The people that work with inside the justice system are corrupt, systemically corrupt. They're not enforcing or pursuing justice as outlined in the Constitution. Their pursuit of information, their pursuit of a conviction overtakes anything else. They need the convictions. They don't need to be right. And if they're wrong, there's no punishment because the appeal will sort it out while an innocent American rots away in jail. The people that are in charge of enforcing and prosecuting our laws have become corrupt systemically across the board to the point where an illegal immigrant is being kept in the country because of a district court judge. When the sole enforcement of immigration is the executive branch or the president, that judge can do nothing. And yet, look at all the chaos we're having with trying to deport criminals, gang members, rapists, child molesters. And look what these courts are doing. They're jumping in. You see? That's not the place for the court. Look at these cases where you have a DNA specialist in Indiana. Where is it? Right nearby there. 30,000 samples, 30,000 cases have to be recalled because this woman made determinations on the DNA that were altered or faulty or inaccurate. She lied. She bullshitted. She's just one of several labs of people that were collecting DNA from law enforcement and telling you who the DNA belonged to. And they lied. They cheated. Because like many of the guilters out there, people don't think anymore. They just don't fucking think anymore. We've been stripped of the capacity to think. We've been turned into I believe or I don't believe. Believing is not thinking. Believing is ignorance. When you're dealing with man's information, it's ignorant. It does not belong amongst man in man's world. You will only and should only believe in the spiritual and or religious. That's it. Believe Jesus walked on water or don't. But don't believe that white car is Brian Koberger because the cop told you it was. Tell the cop to show you confirming factual basis of information that car belonged to Brian. Show me that car is conclusively Brian Koberger's, not the story of his phone turning on and off, not the story that criminals turn their phone off to mask their location. I don't give a fuck what criminals do. Did Brian do that? Show the facts, show the evidence. And this is where you'll find a lot of these guilters are just, they believe what they hear. They believe the media. They believe that stories are good enough to take a man's life. They believe that if a judge says something, a judge should be listened to. And there's a lot of people in this country that are like that. You've been trained to be like that. A lot of people that believe he's innocent will look at the same lack of fact and conclude that means Brian's innocent. And that's not accurate either. Nobody knows if he's innocent or guilty except Brian. Maybe his lawyers. But the fact you can't tie that car to him does not mean Brian Koberger is innocent. The fact that his DNA is there doesn't mean he's guilty, nor does it mean he's innocent. These are circumstantial pieces of evidence. They're not direct evidence. They're not factual evidence. It's circumstantial. They should be supported by fact. Fact. Brian Koberger drives a white 2011 or 2015 Hyundai Elantra. Fact. Circumstances. We observe suspect vehicle 1, which appears to be similar to Brian Koberger's car. Okay. Keyword being similar. There is no fact making the car in that video Brian's. You in your own mind believe it's Brian's, and that's where you're failing yourself as a living, breathing, thinking human being. We've done that to our own country. We believe the right. We believe the left. We believe the Republicans. We believe the Democrats. We believe the independents. We believe, man, you just don't believe in anything that anybody tells you. You don't sometimes believe what your eyes are showing you. Seeing isn't necessarily believing. You could see your significant other walk out of a restaurant and give a woman a hug and believe he's cheating on you. When that could have been a cousin, a stepsister, a coworker, could have been completely innocent. But you saw the hug and the peck on the cheeks and them wave by and separate, and you conclude immediately, you believe he's cheating on you. Well, that's a fool's errand. That's an errand in ignorance. You don't know. The unknown male DNA would be exculpatory fact evidence. Yes. But people don't know they're walking around with blinders. They just don't know it. They really don't know it because it's all they know is what they know. You can't know what you don't know. And we all suffer from that issue of believing in information. And that's just tragic, man. I suffer from it as well. I'm not immune to it. But it's tragic and it causes a lot of fucking problems. Because we're not willing to look for facts. The reason they wouldn't follow through with it was because they had already made the conclusion it was Brian Koberger. Once the FBI gave that name, that was it. The investigation was over. And they could have found blood inside of Maddie's hair. They could have found whatever, and they didn't want to know whether it was Koberger's or not. They'd already determined Koberger was the criminal. That's the systemic violence, the systemic corruption, not violence, but corruption, that sadly Black Lives Matter has mentioned but doesn't know how to explain. Systemic corruption. To the exclusion of all else, we make a determination, and nothing will make us reconsider that determination, no matter what it is. I've never even followed or considered anything connected to Papa Rogers ever. I've never read the information put out by this alleged person. I've never reviewed it. I've never streamed about it. I've never searched for it. I have no interest in Papa Rogers at all. It may be that they're Joanne, there's a reason reasonable people can come to that conclusion, right? But we can't prove that no more than they can prove that's Brian Koberger's car. And you could say, oh, they got the car all over the place, but you cannot, if you're a reasonable thinking, breathing human being, you cannot exclude the first identity of the car. The car that they tracked from WSU to Moscow is provably not Brian. However, their entire narrative depends upon the movements of the car that they tracked heading to Moscow. And you gotta have a fucking rock in your head, a complete fucking rock in your head, because there's no doubt that the car they showed going from Moscow, from Washington to Idaho, from Pullman to Moscow, that's the vehicle they're tracking. That's the vehicle they point to in every single video that they claim they collected. And that cannot be Brian Christopher Koberger. I don't give a fuck what year that Elantra is. It cannot be, because Brian's phone remained on the network for 7 minutes more. Brian's phone was handed off to a cell tower south of Moscow, traveling south. at the same time that they were tracking the car they claim is suspect vehicle 1. They're two different vehicles. Both of them could, in fact, be a 15 or an 11 to 15 or 11 to 16. But their own information shows the car that they're referring to in every single instance, in every single image, in every single video is the car they claim came from Moscow and drove, or came from Poland and drove directly to Moscow. Pardon me. So, for people that want to argue guilt, you're just patently either A, retarded, or you're a troll, which in my opinion makes you retarded. Right? You all saw Ashley Jennings get told by Judge Hippler, you're going to bring up the third tower? If you're going to bring up the third tower, then that's automatically a Franks hearing. No. And I think I'm preaching to the choir in this group of people. That's why you don't see me streaming every day like I did in the beginning. Because I honestly think, based on what I see in the chat room, that you're you're immediately willing to accept Koberger's guilt if you're presented with information that shows you Brian's guilty. But you're all also willing to look at the data given and see the problems with the data given and be willing to discuss the problems with that data and step aside and wait for conclusivity, for undeniable fact that Brian was in that house. That you're willing to set aside all of these horror stories about who this guy is and not really give a fuck what some idiot on Dateline says a picture in a hoodie proves this or that, or him picking up a girl at a pool as showing what a fucking incel he is. All just a bunch of bullshit lies to destroy the character and the personality of Brian Koberger, to make it easier for people to believe that the government's got it right, when the government gets it wrong all the time. All the time. And we as American citizens should not allow it. We should not tolerate it. We should be sending letters to all these district court judges that are trying to prevent the federal government from doing the law, enforcing the laws the federal government is uniquely granted to enforce. We should be sending letters to the Supreme Court. We should be sending letters to the FBI complaining about Brian Koberger's case. We should be sending letters to fucking Idaho. That's what we should be doing as citizens. Okay? I know we talk about this a lot, but we don't really do anything about it. And innocent until proven guilty is the motto of this country. As Ben Franklin said, I would rather see 100 guilty people go free than to see one innocent person be put in prison. You see? And that's the mindset. That's the basis of this country. We broke away from kings and queens and monarchies and fucking socialism and all that other happy horse shit. We need to rejuvenate what America really is. Our youth is being taught that this is a shit place, and it's not. It's not a shit place. It's the best place on earth. It has the most potential of any country ever created in all of the fucking known history that we have. We have the most potential. And those people that run for office or are appointed or get jobs to protect us are being trained inappropriately. I'm not saying Officer Payne isn't capable of doing a good job. I'm saying Officer Payne was incapable of being the lead investigator in this case. And the proof is in the pudding. And this is consistent. I don't think Bill Thompson should be a prosecutor. I think Bill Thompson should lose his job. He's trying to prosecute a case not for what's truth and not for what's right and wrong, but for just the sake of getting another notch in his belt. We don't want prosecutors like that in our country anymore. People need to be gone. We don't want judges interfering with the rightful operation of when the government's doing the right thing, they're doing the right thing. Stay the fuck out of there. It's up for us to vote and pick who leads us, like it or not. When your town is doing the right thing, your town's doing the right thing, and those people that want to oppose it or do the opposite, okay, I don't care what people think. I don't want men dressing up as girls and playing in women's sports. I don't care what your point of view is. If you want to be a woman, if you're a man, you want to dress up a woman, you want to have surgery to be a woman, you want to play sports, make your own fucking team. Okay? Make a transgender team and play against other transgenders, for fuck's sakes. Leave the girls alone, brah. I don't want little girls in school being confronted or wrestling or playing fucking ball with boys, okay? After puberty. Prior to puberty, that's fun. But I don't need somebody dressing up as a woman and blowing out a fucking track meet and winning. That's bullshit. Take that fucking craziness and live your life by it, but keep your problems your problems. Don't make your fucking problems mine. I don't want somebody illegally crossing the border and them getting a social security number and collecting social security, of which there's 5 million fucking illegals that it's been done with. I want that social security to go to my seniors. I don't want people on disability to get just enough money to have no fucking money, to get just enough money to have no dignity. They're disabled, for fuck's sakes. I want the federal money, the local money, the state money, the county money, the town money to be spent for Americans. I don't want fucking the richest hotels in fucking New York filled with illegal immigrants, my veterans. And people with mental illness are suffering in the fucking street. No. I don't even got to agree with who you vote with or who the fuck you pray to. You're an American citizen just like me. And in order to form a more perfect fucking union, right, we establish justice and tranquility. Remember that? Schoolhouse Rock? Support the common defense, promote the general welfare. That's what I want to see happen back in this nation. And when you look at a prosecution of an individual that may be involved or may not be involved, right? Then you need to look at it analytically. You need to look at it for the facts that it's presented. And it shouldn't be that difficult for people to say, you know, the only available information to us currently is consistent with what that fucking Friday said. The killings began at 4:17 a.m. on the early morning hours of November 13th, 2022. And we could say that without a doubt because the available data shows that to be accurate and nothing can contradict it. And until something does contradict it, your host will continue to push forward that, in fact, the murders in Idaho began at 4:17 a.m. And I'm basing that on the data the state has collected and released to the public. Not my assessment, not my guess, not my fucking Banfield fucking Cyber Park fucking jerk off fucking stories that these other streamers are talking about. But based on actual factual releases that we can all go read and see. So there's it, folks. I love doing the stream. It was awesome tonight. I'm glad all of you came in. I don't know where we ended up with likes, but I think hitting like would be awesome before you pull out. If you haven't hit like, get us to that 100 number. And that I'm at 99 right now. Now, the irony of this is that I'm going to keep preaching like some fucking wackadoodle southern fucking fried preacher. Okay? Until I get one more like. I need to have one more like before I go to bed. I mean, what really? 99 likes? And there's 95, you mean of the 95 people that are in here, there isn't one of you that didn't hit that like? Come on now. Got 95 viewers and 99 likes. But the stream, it's, oh, there we go. Bingo. Man, you people are fucking awesome. Well, that's a good question because before I get out, I'll say, no, it's 107. I just refreshed. It's at 107, Cricket. Bam. Now we are in the algorithm, whatever the fuck that is. Okay, so listen. Why Bethany Funk messaged Dylan Morrison first? Because Bethany Funk heard something. Something alerted Bethany Funk. That's why. And because there is no other communications released from 3:50 a.m. until 4:19 is when the roommates started their interaction. But that interaction began with Bethany, which tells us that whatever was happening, it was enough for her to contact Dylan. That whatever was happening right now. Right now. When she sent that text message, it was during the time of the crime. The barking of the dog, the recording of the thud, the recording of the whimper, the text message, all coalesced within less than 2 minutes. Therefore, the crime started and the crime was in progress, and this shit was happening in the house while the two survivors were engaged in communication. That's the analysis that cannot be disproven at all by anybody on any stream or in any court of law. I don't give a fuck what your law degree is and how long you've been a lawyer. There is no way to disprove what I am saying because there's no data that contradicts it. All the data coalesces into that time frame of 4/17 forward. That data is real. That data is all the information we have about that night. That data denotes the beginning of the crime and the response by the survivors during the commission of the crime. Okay? I know you don't trust everything the state puts out. I'm not arguing that. But I am saying that this is a dog picked up on a video. Both Ann acknowledged that, acknowledges the state acknowledges that. The thud, the whimper are on that same tape at the same time. And Bethany's communication to Dylan started at 4:19. These are pieces of data that are solid and agreed upon by all parties. So they must be accepted at face value until or unless contradicting information is provided to counter what we have. If information cannot counter this analysis of what happened prior to 4/17, then this analysis is sound. It's the most sound analysis out here on the net. Okay? Really, I don't think anybody can disagree with that if they're really paying attention to what's going on. But I think people will agree that I fucking talked long enough. And it's time to shut that fucking sergeant up. I want to say to people that'll listen to this from that list over there at 12 Gage's room of his fucking troll army of fucking twiddle fucking D's and twiddle fucking dumbs. Okay? That they're free to go lick each other's ass anywhere else on the internet except here. Because if I catch you in here, you're going to be banned after I directly insult you and a member of your family, preferably your mother or sisters. Okay? All right, folks. Listen, be good or be bad. But if you're going to be bad, just don't get caught. You all have a good night. We'll talk with you again.